Today is February 6th. We're getting into Jake's favorite thing, Shelton's platoon lineups. Can we define the word punt in baseball? Is it a thing? Hey, Key's buff, guys. And we're drafting something. It's the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Let's go. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I am joined, as always, by my brother Jake. What's up, Jake?
Hey, man. How we doing?
Doing good.
Yeah?
Doing good.
Tell you what, it's crazy down here right now, man. I never thought about Mardi Gras down here. Dude, it's a whole nother thing. It is whole other thing down here. Parades. I mean, there's so many parades. Like the whole month. It's crazy, man. It's wild.
So this is funny. It's quick. My voice may be in and out a little bit. I had a cold earlier this week, and if you guys have listened long enough and you know about my parosmia and whatnot, then you know. If you don't, you don't. But I do occasionally, if I'm eating something that's gross for me because of that, I have to wear a nose plug to try to, force some food down. And I had my nose plug on, and I had a cold on Monday, and I sneezed with the nose plug on. And it absolutely destroyed the back of my throat. By Tuesday night, couldn't make a sound. It was just completely gone. And so still fighting that back. Throat's still kind of real irritated, which makes me cough and all this stuff. The cold's pretty much gone, but I'm still dealing with this throat thing. Other than just like general cold, like winter allergy, stuff like that, which is like morning is stupid. Then you take your allergy pill and you're fine by lunch, right?
Right.
So anyway, it's going to be interesting, but that was a wild experience that I thought was worthy of sharing. So we do have a lot to talk about. We do. We have
packed episode.
Yeah, we have. It's a couple things here. Specifically, we're going to talk about Derek Shelton's lineups, which is one of Jake's favorite things. We talked about this in our roster projection thing. About Jake says, get a lineup, go out there every day with it. So we're going to take a look at that sort of a thing. Also, we're going to talk about the Pirates' spending habits or lack thereof. This one's worth sticking around for because it's something that I think it's something we say a lot about, and I don't think we're really thinking of things the right way when we do. And I'm, myself included. I think that we get caught up in the spending, and stick around. That's going to be worth it. And also a little bit about the word punt, which we've avoided this conversation for quite a while. And then we're also going to do our draft. So this week we're going to draft outfielders and catchers. So we do have a lot to get into. I want to get started here. So the first thing I want to say, which is a very quick thing, is did you see the video of Ke'Bryan Hayes?
I did.
Do you think that he is huge?
No, but I think he's definitely bigger than he was last year.
I think he's huge.
Definitely.
The shoulder, the upper arm was like, oh. So the one thing I will notice too, or will say too, is that swing looks better than it has.
Yeah.
It seems like the wrist and everything feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything, all the mobility and everything seemed to be like, oh yeah, he looks like he's feeling real good right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
So long as he can avoid another injury, I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
The bat to ball skills are there. They've proven to be there. There's been numbers in the last few weeks that people have been sharing and spreading around, and you guys have all seen them. Man, if he could just be healthy and be right. I'm not saying this guy's like he's a game changer, but not in the way of like, oh yeah, he's going to put up gaudy numbers. Like, no, not like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
right.
I think that having him right and having him not be like just being an asset helps a lot, especially with what he does on defense. So, yeah, I think he looks huge myself. I think he looks a little more like a third baseman than he has been. That's the way I'll say it.
Definitely looks like he's put on some weight.
Yeah. And in a very good way. Good weight. Yeah. A lot of times, though, I will say this, like guys come into spring and you're like, oh, yeah, he's looking thick or whatever. Trust me, by August, he'll be skinny again. So it's baseball for you. Yeah. It absolutely destroys these guys' bodies. And so they have to make sure that they come into the season with added weight because that weight will be shed. Yep. It's just the way it goes. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into this Shelton's lineup thing because, man, it is pretty crazy when I started looking up a lot of stuff. And you know me. You know I looked up a bunch of stuff, and I took the time. And way do you know what I looked up here? I went to all 30 teams, by the way. I looked at all 30 teams. The Athletic released an article this week about the opening day roster. It was last Monday. Rob Biertempfel talks about his roster projection like, everybody's doing right now. But he kicks it off by talking about Derek Shelton's use of many lineups, which I think is a very fair way to start things off because sure, you can, like we said, we can say this is our lineup, but like, what's that really mean? You know what I mean? This is
right.
This is a template lineup, I guess you could say. But he points out that Shelton really likes to utilize the platoon advantage, not just using different lineups, but using the platoon thing. We had this discussion. I did it, and I said, yeah, but we know they do the platoons. It's nice to see that like this is backed up, not just a perception of mine. So according to Bill James, Shelton is using a lefty-righty platoon 69% of the time. I have numbers on how much he's using it, and then we'll move on with the rest. Let me pull up my numbers here because this is wild. What I looked up was the lineups that the teams used and the number of lineups that they used in the 162-game season. And also, I looked up the number of the most common lineups. So, like, if you've ran this lineup out, it's your most common lineup. We put that lineup on the field X amount of times. And we're going to do this as an exercise, Jake. I hope you're ready. We're going to do this as an exercise because I want to prove a point. And you have to cooperate with me here and just, like, give me a ballpark, right? But it also, I wrote some notes about it, but I also put how many players per slot 1 through 9 that all of these teams used. Oh, yeah. So let me just tell you, how many lineups do you think the Pirates used last year in 161 games? Different lineups.
Man, I would say...
Go ahead and be negative about it. Be negative.
I did not look into this stuff because
I know. That's the whole point.
I'm gonna say at least 75.
Oh, no. No, be for real. Don't give benefit of the doubt here. What do you think it is?
I mean, my goodness, I'm thinking I'm way off the mic. I sat back to think and was like, hey, you can't hear me. Was it north of 100?
Oh yeah. There's not a team in baseball that used less than 100 lineups.
Are you serious?
I'm 100% serious.
I'm actually surprised to hear that.
I'm just going to tell you just the sake of time, because then you can start getting a ballpark. The Pirates used 156 variations of a lineup last year.
100.
They used a similar lineup twice. 6 different variations of the lineup they used twice. The rest of them were singular.
That is absurd.
Okay, it's not the worst. It's not the worst. If I look down through anybody, I'll just give you this. Cincinnati's 151, St. Louis 152, Chicago Cubs 150. Okay, I'm just doing the ones over 150. Miami 154, San Francisco 153, Colorado 153, 152 Minnesota, 158 Chicago White Sox, 158, 161 Detroit Tigers. They only used one lineup twice. Every day but 2. They had a different lineup. 158 for Tampa, 158 for Oakland, 153 for Angels, 151 for Seattle.
That is
the lowest number on the list.
Mind.
There's 125 for Milwaukee, 123 for the Dodgers. That makes sense. That's it. Nobody else even in the 120s. Everybody else is over 130 different lineups. So now I'll tell you that. Now I'll ask you this. What do you think as far as the common lineup? So you know what you get what I'm saying when I say that, right? Like we took this lineup. It was our most used lineup. The number of times that lineup was most used. So I just told you the Dodgers are at 123 lineups and Milwaukee's 125. So I'll bury the lead here. They're not their most common lineup is not the highest number of games with their most common lineup. But what do you think that number is? There's two teams with that number, and then Milwaukee and Dodgers are second. With what that is the number of times that they used their most common lineup.
8.
That's exactly right. That you nailed that.
Listen, after hearing that data, like, geez, I knew it couldn't have been a high.
Houston and Boston used the same lineup, used a common lineup 8 times last season, and the Dodgers and Milwaukee had their highest was 7, and there's only 2 teams, so I can name them: San Francisco and Kansas City 6 times. They use the same. And then from there, it just goes down. I mean, it is a lot. Now, while I will say Boston and Houston also had 6.
Doesn't sound right to
so
me.
The Dodgers had 7 times they used the common lineup. And then actually there was 2 different lineups that they used 6 times. So they're pretty common. Milwaukee was 7 for their top one. And then they had 4 different lineups that they ran out there 4 times. So, yeah. And I'm saying like the lowest number, like when you look at some of these teams, and this is where it starts to make sense for you. Like, let me read Atlanta. They're at 129. They were another 120s. Atlanta was at 129. Their most common lineup, they used 5 times. Their second most common, 4 times. And then they had 3 or 4 different lineups that they ran out there 3 times. But if you look at that, they had 6 different leadoff hitters, 8 different 2 hitters, 6 different 3 hitters, 8 different 4 hitters, 8 different 5 hitters. The back half of that lineup, 16, 16, 17, 14, because that's where it changes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Acuna was batting first 115 times. Swanson batted second 102 times. And Riley third 103 times. Most of the time, those 3 guys were out there. But you shift what's going on in some of the rest of them.
Yeah,
now,
I guess that makes a little more sense.
And this isn't just defensive lineup either. This could be like, well, halfway through the year, we moved Schwarber out of the 3 hole and put him in the leadoff. You know what I'm saying? That's a different lineup now. So things like that happen. So when you start thinking of those sort of things, I will say this though, because I want to get into these numbers a little bit more because I want to compare some other teams. Mookie Betts batted first 138 times. Freeman and Trey Turner batted second 83 and 78 times, and then third 76 and 59 times. So most of the time it was Betts, Turner, Freeman, or Betts, Freeman, Turner for most of the season. But then the back half of that's going to change a little bit, and things like that are going to happen. Dude, Washington, who traded Juan Soto in July. Juan Soto was still their most commonly used second and third hitter.
Yeah.
He was batted second 61 times and third 39 times, and nobody else matched that after he left because they were just moving parts everywhere.
Yeah.
Goldschmidt and Arenado hardly ever moved. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Willie Adames with Milwaukee 136 times in the 2 hole. Right? So you're seeing these guys with good players, and they don't move around much. Mullins with Baltimore, even though they had only 3 different lineups or 4 different lineups they repeated 3 times, but Mullins still batted first 141 times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The Mets were one of the biggest. They only had 1 lineup they put out there 4 times. three more lineups they put out there 3 times, but Nimmo 140 times leading off, Marte 107 times batting second, Lindor 133 times batting third, Alonso 150 times batting fourth. Their core lineup hardly ever changed.
Yeah.
So those sort of things are what you can understand as common. Philly, most of the year, had Schwarber Hoskins 1-2. So, you know what I mean? You start to get that. To break it down a little bit more for just the Pirates, now that we've set the table there, Reynolds batted second 124 times. We had our good player. We put him in a spot. We didn't move him. That kind of makes me feel a little bit better about it. Yes, there were 10 different 2-hitters, but most every day it was Reynolds. You know what I mean? No other player had 50 times in a spot. Hayes, first and third, 39 and 49 times. He was the most common third hitter and first hitter, I believe. Vogelback was our most common 4-hitter at 42 times. Gamble hit fourth 41 times. And then our last leader was Jason DeLay hitting ninth 46 times. Other than that, it moved around and changed. And so that kind of tells you. So I have some questions on this. I don't know how far I want to go into this. I'm looking at the time here. Man, if you really want to break it down, like Shelton's time here, he used 156 lineups last year. He used 150 the year before that. And then in 20 out of 60 games, he used 57 different lineups. He's obviously moving around quite a bit. I looked at Hurdle's numbers just to see if this is a Shelton thing. We already know it's kind of not, but he's still on the top end of this. In 19, Hurdle used 131 lineups out of 161 days. By the way, Reynolds batting second 93 times. But there was a lot more common players, right? Like Marte third 90 times, Bell fourth 140 times, Frazier and Newman first 78 and 74 times. It was mostly Frazier and Newman at leadoff. In 18, 128 lineups. But it was kind of all over the place. Mostly Jordy Mercer in the 8 spot, which was a tough spot because we're talking about pitching lineups too, you know, and we ignored pitchers at this time, which I think you get more variations when you have 9 hitters rather than only 8 hitters.
Yeah.
So this kind of plays in favor of that. 125 and 16, 108 and 15. Oh. 123 and 14, 127 and 13. Those are low. 11 and 12, 134, 133. But in those years, you had Kutch hitting in the 3-hole.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Marte hitting leadoff or Alvarez hitting, in a certain spot. And it kind of reminds me like there still wasn't a lot of real common spots. But it was the idea that like they were running a lineup out there in 15 and 16. They had a lineup that they ran out there. In 15, they had 2 lineups. One time they ran it out there 12 times. One time they ran out there 10. And then 16, they had a lineup that they ran 14 times. John Jaso batting first most of that time, and Kutch either second or third, because that's when they started moving Kutch to second. And then they moved him back to third in 17, 126 times, and then the rest is history. But the point is it changed a lot then too. But what you saw back in the postseason runs is those lineups regulated and you used a lot less.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Does that mean a team full of players that are good? Maybe the lineup sticks around a little longer. Right? Is this the talent? Does this change with a better idea of who your best players are? And let me back this up and then get your thoughts here, because Rob goes on to point out, I say that Rob goes out because I didn't read Bill James' handbook, so I'm going off of what Rob said. Rob goes out to point out that in the handbook, it states that a platoon system gives you about 17 extra runs a season. James wrote, you can pretty easily lose 17 runs in a season too if you're not putting your best players on the field. If you're short of talent, I think it's smarter to keep your best players in the lineup as much as you can rather than hunting for small percentage advantages. So let me ask you this about Shelton's lineups, which, by the way, Brian Reynolds was in the same spot in the lineup 124 times last year. So in your opinion, like, Did they keep their best player in the lineup? Yeah. How many
Yeah.
best players did the Pirates have last year?
Right. Yeah.
And so when you look at those platoon advantages, I'm going to give you this now, okay? This is the
Yeah, you're
last
good.
thing. When you give me those platoon advantages, are we not including, well, we're using the platoon advantages where our best players aren't?
Yeah, and that's fair. I think knowing a lot or hearing a lot of this information, I feel as though, or I think as though that core, we're starting to get that core. We're getting to the point where we can start setting our like 1 through 4, 1 through 3 guys, and those should be the guys that don't move around very much. Could be 1 through 3. It could be 2 through 4. But I feel like we're getting there to where we got those 3, maybe 2 to 4 players that can be a solid foundation for this team moving forward. And those are the guys you don't want to move around a lot. And if Reynolds is or is not a part of that, I'm taking that out of the equation because
Right.
as of right now, he is a corner. He's a core.
He's
spot.
on the field. He's
Yeah,
not
he's
a
on the
platoon
field.
player.
And we have how many switch hitters in this lineup too?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
So
I don't know. That's what I see. I see the core sticking around more, and I think we got more than one now.
yeah, I think
Hopefully.
that. Yeah, I think so too. Well, I think Brian's
gotta
there.
play.
I think I think Cruz is there. You know what I mean? He's going to play both ways.
Mhm.
But what could
Yeah.
change to me is not whether the guys are on the field or off the field. Is I would still have a righty and lefty lineup. Right? If you'd know, like, I don't know. If you've got a guy who's exceptional against hitting against lefties and he's like league average against righties, I don't mind putting him in the top of the order and bumping a left-handed hitter who might struggle against that lefty to the 5 spot, so long as they're both playing and they both know that it's happening, right? And it's not just like, well, today you're hitting 5th, tomorrow you're hitting 6th, next day you're hitting 7th, then you're going to bump you up to 2. And like, no. Like if you understand that, hey, when there's a lefty on the mound, I hit 5th. When there's a righty on the mound, I hit 2nd or 1st. To me, a good example of that would be Key Bryant. Against righties, I would like to see him batting 6th. But against lefties, I don't care if you put him lead off or 3. Like, I'm confident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just depends on what you want to do with Reynolds and Cruz and how you want to do that. If you don't want Cruz batting leadoff against a lefty, I think I'd understand that. If you wanted Cruz batting leadoff against righties, I think I'd understand that. And so the way that I could do that is if I could just have a leadoff hitter against lefties, okay, that's easy. Ke'Bryan Hayes hits lefties well. So let's do that. And these aren't my answers. I'm using these as hypotheticals, okay?
Right.
But I'm just to keep the conversation moving. I don't mind that, but I think in that case, your best players are on the field. I'm not taking my best players out so that they play. You would make this argument, and this is we've got a couple minutes. You would make this argument where I was playing a different player on the field against lefties rather than Jack Sawinski. And you're the one saying, hey, let him play.
Yeah.
I want to see what he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying, and I think I said this last week too, but I'm not saying if, hey, we're facing a lefty today and Sawinski's around fluctuate their days off.
Yeah.
Don't schedule their days off.
Yeah. Okay, don't go down that one. Stick with the
right. So when you're going to give him a day off,
yep.
You say we're in that parameter of, hey, he's going to need a day off here soon. Well, we're facing a lefty on this day, so let's give him that day off.
Yeah,
fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But if you're using it consistently as to try to get a platoon advantage, are you? The question is who's coming in for him, and what is your level of confidence in that player coming in? Because if it's not as much, if you're just trying to put it this way, if you're putting in Michael Chavis, which this is why it's super hypothetical, because he hits lefties well, you may still be, I don't know, because Chavis, I mean, he was Against lefties, he's a respectable hitter, right? I mean, he's going to
Yeah.
be, so I don't know. I don't know who Jack Sawinski is yet. I don't know if he's a career platoon guy, but, guys like Jock Peterson have shown that just leave him in and it keeps him going.
Yeah.
And you're still going to get some production out of them against lefties. So I think that's a respectable thing. I just wanted to kind of point out, like, we don't understand what those numbers really are.
Right.
And like I said, if you go there with a core of 1 through 4, as we start to fade out here, and we're getting close to we're actually at our break right now, so this is kind of closing out. If we get there close where we're 1 through 4, 1 through 5, maybe even 1 through 6, where we start to have a solidified common lineup that only fluctuates a very little, then I think that you're going to see still that back half is still going to cover a lot of lineups. But
yeah,
the way of the game right now is the team with the least amount of lineups in 161 games is 123.
Right.
123 different lineups. And I didn't go too far back with any other team except for last year. There was a couple teams that were the high volume teams that I did go back with, but I don't have time to share those numbers, but different managers, like, they just didn't fluctuate much. Like, it's been like that for a few years anyway. So it's wild. Even Tony La Russa had a lot of lineups. So that to me is like,
that's because he couldn't remember what he ran out the day before.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back and talk about money. He didn't remember what he was doing. I can't even find this. Thanks for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2 Buctober. Audio podcast available on your favorite podcast platform. Video podcast available on YouTube. Follow us on the socials and subscribe to the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, take a couple minutes for a review. We'll be right back. And we're back here on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Thanks, guys, for sticking around. Let's get into this next thing. And I want to be very clear, first and foremost, about the intent of this is to join the discussion here. And we've had the discussion here a little bit on Twitter, and I know Yark has been a part of that. Yark, I know you're listening. And so you're really wanting to hear about the punt stuff. Now, obviously, this comes from DK, most commonly, who talks about the punt stuff and the daily shots that he runs. And I love the daily shots, listen to him every day when I can. I also work when I listen to him. So, of course, I miss some things, which DK pointed out to me this week. And DK, if you do listen to this, I did listen to Thursday on the one part, and you're right, you did talk about it, and I totally missed it. So that's great. And I did totally miss it, but it does make sense, and I hear exactly what you're talking about in that, and I might get to that. But he's using the word punting, and, we talk about this, and it's like, there's different opinions and different levels of what punt is and what the Pirates are doing, and are they punting? Are they trying to win? What are they doing? And where does this go? The thing that I want to kind of point out, and we'll get to, is using payroll to make the argument. That's where we're going to end up. And that's where I'm going to say that's where we kind of split and fall apart. But I will say that the stuff that was talked about this week, there was some payroll stuff talked about, and he made his point based on his number. And then there were some other things where, like, Fangraphs has a different number, Ethan has a different number, all these things. His point is made no matter which one of those numbers is correct. Like, they're not that far off, and his point is still made regardless of which one is correct. So I'm not getting into those numbers. I don't think it makes that big of a deal. Somebody using a 25-man roster instead of a 26-man roster is not something I'm going to get bent out of shape on, just like I call it the disabled list every once in a while by accident. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are new things. Let's be careful here. But anyway, like most of you, I don't just hear things and believe them. I look them up. I seek answers. I expect you guys do the same things when we're talking. At least I hope you do, because there's no way I'm right about everything. When I share numbers, I could be wrong. I've been wrong. I've been pointed out for it, and I appreciate it when I am. But anyway, it's also not DK's job to have his listeners fact check. It's not his fault, right? But you know what I mean? In no way imaginable is he responsible for that. So I don't care about that either. But his listeners are going to hear these things without fact checking. And that's where it's like, okay, let's go ahead and join this. Let's go ahead and join this discussion about punting and see where we're at. And I will tell you this, that he's even said, if there's another word to describe it, let me know. So maybe there is, maybe there's not. But what does punt mean to you? What does it mean to me? Are the Pirates punting? Are they not? That's what we're going to get into. I think that's a pretty good enough setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like calling anybody out here. This is a discussion. So let's start here. What is a punt? Is a punt the worst thing even? So I'm going to do my best. I have this written down. I'm going to mostly read this so I don't mess it up. And then we'll see where we're at. A punt, from my understanding of it anyway, is a football term where you give the other team the ball. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm going to stick to punt in football here. You're not going to hear like a parallel here because you don't give the other team a ball, right? Okay. So is it a forfeit type thing? Is it, do you punt on first down? Is it tanking to lose on purpose? Is punt and tanking the same thing? I don't see it that way. I see punting as a strategy. You see the likelihood of your team getting a first down is not good. You decide to punt the ball to back up the other team and give yourself a chance to get the ball back with better field position the next time your offense takes the field, rather than going for it on 4th and 15 on your own 35, which to me seems silly. So there. You could say the Pirates were staring at 4th and 25 when Ben Sherrington took over. But however you do it, let's go for it. Let's not even fake punt. Let's not even look like we're going to. We just go. Let's not trade any of those players. No Marte trade, no Cole trade, even though that was before him, but let's just, for the sake of our illustration here, no Cole trade, no Tyon trade, so on. Hey, Josh from the future, piping in here real quick. We had a video problem. Just going to jump back in. I've got the audio stuff. I'm going to punch it in here, and you can look at a picture of me and Jake in the meantime. All of those players are now gone because of free agency. They're gone. We do not have those players anymore at this point in time, right? We went back. Yeah. We didn't trade them. They're all gone now. We also don't have Jack Sawinski, Rohansi Contreras, David Bednar, Will Crow, Andy Rodriguez, Kanan Smith and Jigba, Tucupita Marcano, Johan Oviedo, Colin Holderman, Malcolm Nunez, Leo Verpagero, Kyle Nicholas, Dowry Murray. Do I need to keep going? Because there's a bunch of those were just the notable ones. There's more. We don't have any of those players. That team in 2019 lost 93 games. That included the Cole trade that we had Musgrove on that team. We had Colin Moran on that team. You know what I mean? So, but Musgrove, let's talk about the guys that were actually helpful. We wouldn't have had Musgrove or Cole in 2019. Cole would have been already gone to free agency at that time. The last time Garrett Cole was on the team, Kutch was still on the team, and they lost 87 games. The likelihood of, okay, first off, this is not foolproof, right? There was also the Archer thing thrown in there, which actually was them going for it. That was actually an all-in move, right, to go get Archer, even though, think what you want of it. I mean, I know we don't think very well of it. So I don't know who could in hindsight, right?
Right.
But the idea was that was his goal. His goal, he thought he was going for it. The point is, we probably do not convert that 4th and 15 with that team.
Correct.
We were already losing more than we were winning. So we don't convert on 4th and 15. We did not give ourselves good field position. We're buried. Even if our defense is good, eventually we're giving up a safety and punting again. Over and over, this continues to happen. So you punt. You have to. It puts yourself in a better position the next time and the next time until you're at the point where you're getting 4th and 2 in their red zone. Now you push and go for it and convert and win, because 4th and 2, I mean, that's about your chance to win even when you have the best team you could possibly have. I mean, The Pirates won 98 games back in 15 and lost in one game, and they were out of it. So it doesn't matter how well you're set up. Anything can happen when you get to the postseason. So you're still on 4th down at that point in this illustration, right?
Yeah.
So is this what the Pirates are doing this season? We know that we've punted, And I'm actually okay with the punt because I think that's what a rebuild is, right? You punt so that you can give yourself better position. And so at this point, are we still punting is the next question. So we've defined what the punt is and what we think of it. And this is basically what I'm saying at this point is that's our understanding of the word. At least it's mine. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think I think that was a great way to describe it.
Okay. So then at this point, do you see what the Pirates are doing 2023 wise? Are they still punting?
Yeah, you have to be. Because you got to keep continuing to set yourself up for the next year until you're really, really sure you're ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think we're
we're punting right now. I think we're punting on like 4th and 8.
Okay.
Or 4th, we're not 4th and 15. We're not 4th and 20. Like we're getting the yardage closer and closer to where we're going to be able to go for it.
Yeah, this is interesting that we keep going down this path with this illustration. Eventually, we're going to hit a point where we're saying it doesn't work anymore, but I do get it because then it's like, okay, well, also, what's your field position? Are we at the 50-yard line yet? Because I think that's going to play too, whether you go for it on 4th down. Where are you at are we at the 50-yard line yet?
I would say if we're not, we're awfully close. I mean,
yeah, I think that's there too. I think you don't go for it at the 50-yard line. You wait till you're about at the 40, right? And you got to be around, actually, even 4th and 8, I'm okay going for it if I'm in good field position. When you think of the illustration, when you're not thinking of football, when you think of the illustration,
right,
you're saying like, yeah, I mean, even if it's a little bit of a shot, but you're in a good place, I think maybe it's still okay to go for it a little bit. I think they're going for it? No, I don't think that 1-year deals to figure out first base is going for it. I don't think that 1 year, a 1-year deal on a catcher who eventually will be a backup catcher, hopefully, if things go well, I don't think is going for it. So I think that there's, situations like that. So I don't really know if they're punting right now. It doesn't feel the same as it has. It feels like they finally paid attention to the major league team and where there are actual holes. I like the fact they didn't block anyone. Nobody's blocked in the moves that they made. You could say Oviedo, Ortiz, but I think that that's more of like they're buying them time. And the pitching wise, because pitching is fragile, basically.
Yeah.
So what I want to really move this into is the idea that the fans that I've talked to and who have joined in these things, they keep going back to payroll and saying, how can they not be punting if they're only spending 60 to 70 million? And I think that's where I break down in this conversation, in this discussion, is saying that the money itself is where this takes a turn. And so that's when I say, hey, Steinbrenner's money doesn't buy wins.
Yeah.
And that's the, one way to do it. You don't have to have a high payroll to win games. Now, I'm not suggesting this team is like ready to win a bunch of games. I'm not suggesting that there aren't places to fill guys in. But we talk about payroll as if it will just automatically win games. So let's do 2 scenarios. Spend money on better players who will replace the players right now, who we kind of like some of these guys.
Right.
But let's replace them. Let's replace second base. Who cares about the pipeline of guys we have coming up? Who cares about Castro and Bay? We don't care about those options. Payroll is secondary. Again. Or the other option is just pay the players. Let's give O'Neal Cruz an extension. Let's give Brian Reynolds an extension. Let's give Mitch Keller an extension. Who else we got? Who could use an extension and use more money? You got anybody that I didn't say? Let's do. We already got Key. Let's do Roanzi. Let's do Bednar. Let's give them all extensions. Let's see if we can get up to that 100 million.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're spending 100 million. We're going to win more games. We get the same exact team on the field.
Right. Yeah.
You get the same exact team on the field.
Yeah.
But we spent more money, so we're going to win more games, right?
And some of those guys are now comfortable because they got a guaranteed deal.
Okay, you're actually trying to prove the point. So that.
No, the opposite.
Oh, yeah, they're not fighting for it. Okay.
Yeah, you're not fighting for a contract anymore.
Oh, okay.
And that's a proven thing. It happens. It's not a guarantee. Like, it's obviously
some
not a
guys get
guarantee
comfortable
happening,
where
but
they don't feel like they're pressing, and then they're just able to go out and play. So, but I get where you're going there. That's actually better. So, we need to be motivated by getting good players, not spending more money. Do the two kind of happen together? Yeah, they do. But I think first and foremost, you have to get good players. How do you get good players? There's 3 ways. There's draft and development, there's trades, and there's free agency. Or draft, international signings, and development, right? Let's include that with the draft piece, right? It's acquiring amateur players and developing them, trades or free agency. But the draft and development piece, the amateur and development piece, and the trades have to come first.
Yeah.
And then free agency. Dude, if you're staring at 4th and 15, I'm not coming to your team.
Right.
You're at 4th and 2, let's talk. You can't do free agency until you've done the others. The Pirates are still working on the others. We don't know what we have. And I'm going to pick on 2 guys here. We don't know what we have in Sawinski and Castro. Those are the 2 I'm going to pick on. Interchange those with your favorite players. Not that those 2 are my favorite, but those are the 2 that I like right now that I think I want to see more from. Ji-hwan Bae is close on that list, right? Ji-hwan Bae could possibly be the 1-2 punch to that as well. But like, you don't know what you have out of these guys yet. Any of the 3. I'm going to stick to the 2 just for the sake of an illustration and making it less words. If you're making record projections based off of payroll, then Cleveland had no shot of making the postseason last year, whose payroll was less last year than the Pirates is this year. And that includes a guy that made $20 million last year. So really, really low. Take him out of the lineup. They probably collectively made less money or spent more money than the Pirates did last year. But that's not what happened on the field. And that's because they had good players on their team. Not because they spent money or didn't spend money or anything. They've traded as many players as the Pirates have over the years, and their middle infield was a product of trading Francisco Lindor. They had to do it, right? Oh, and by the way, they made it to the postseason with Austin Hedges, just to throw that in there. It's maybe not the end of the world that he's your catcher. So, beside the point. But the thing is like, we talk about spending money like it's going to win us more games, and I think spending money for no reason is just absolutely silly. And I'm not sitting here saying that the Pirates are doing everything right, but to go back to the Sawinski and Castro thing, if we just signed guys to play corner, outfield, and second base and said, sorry guys, you're going to be backups, then add them to the list of guys who made it big somewhere else.
Yeah. Because
they didn't get their opportunity here. And we'll have a half-decent $10 million second baseman who played 2 years and had a 2.3 WAR to show for it. And then they're going to go play 6 years somewhere else and hit 20 to 25 to 30 homers a year. I'm not saying this is what they will do, but it's what they could. This is something that could happen. And if we just, it's not smart, it's not sustainable. They spent money on first base this year, a position that no one would be blocked. We had no options at first base. Let's get real. We had none. Malcolm Nunez and Mason Martin were not an option for 2023.
Right.
So no one knocking. That's a good thing. They spent money at a good position where they haven't done this. They haven't done this yet. This is what we've been calling for. And I'll even say this. We called last year, go sign a corner outfielder, play corner outfield. We got nobody to do it. And we were happy, you and I, and I'm calling me and you out. We would have been happy with Gamble, Reynolds, and a free agent outfielder to play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had we done that, we would not know 19 home runs from Jack Sawinski. So maybe we were wrong. I mean, obviously hindsight's 20/20 in all these situations.
Sure.
And maybe Ben Gamble would have been a fourth outfielder, which I think is probably his best position. And I don't say that I just think that, he would be a valuable player if he's your supplemental outfielder.
Yeah.
You just can't bring in someone to block Sawinski or Castro or Bay or Mitchell, CSN, Swaggerty, like we don't know yet. It doesn't make sense to do that yet.
Right.
Give them a shot. If they don't work out, then for 24, we know where we need to fill more holes. First base, by the way, will be one of those positions again in 24 that we'll need to do.
Yeah.
But if this team shows up, let's say Sawinski and Castro do hit, maybe what you sign at first base isn't a 1-year deal. Maybe it's like a legit player who signs a 5-year deal because they now see, oh, I can help that team go to the next step.
Yeah.
What do you got on this, man? I know I talked a lot and I told you I was going to this week and it is what it is. And I'm looking at the time and we're right exactly where we were. We had our technical difficulties and whatnot on the video side, but what do you got?
I think you've hit it like directly on the head. Like I don't have much to combat there.
Anything to add though? I'm not asking you to disagree.
No, I know, but I'm just saying like, you're absolutely right. It's about the players, not the money. The money comes because you have good players and you want to keep them. And that's where a lot of us are struggling with, give some guys extensions.
Yeah. I mean, specifically right now it's Brian Reynolds. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Let's get a deal done. He wants to be here, but if you're not going to give him what he's worth, he's not going to stick around.
No, I mean, you can say I want to be somewhere, but I can't be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not, I want to play for the Pirates next year. That's not going to happen, guys. So just because I want to doesn't mean that it's in the cards. Yeah, really. You want to talk about Anthony Alford. You wait till you see me swing and miss at 95. Holy cow. You'd even see faces from me. Like I'd swing and then go, boom, like I got no shot. At least those guys look confident. I'd be like, oh, yeah, right. Who can hit that? Oh, shoot. All right. So anyway, we'll fill a roster. This is our take. We'd love to hear what you guys think. We'd love to hear how nutso you think we are. I mean, if you're nice about it and you're civil and reasonable about it, we'll have conversations with you. If you're not coming in with, you're the dumbest person I've ever met and stuff like that. But the thing is, to me, is like if our conversations didn't start with payroll, I think that we could have a different conversation about this 2023 team coming up.
Yeah.
I really think even paying a guy in general doesn't guarantee anything. I mean, Christian Yelich just is handicapping the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, I still am in that camp that says, yeah, but he could still become a productive player again. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there. Yeah. He's just struggled. But it certainly can happen. So anyway, all right, deep breath. Whew. I hope we're all good there. I mean, I really feel like this was something I felt like we've talked about briefly, but I wanted to really kind of nail it down and say we have to change the root of our conversation. Winning games doesn't start with payroll. Payroll is completely secondary. If we have holes that we're not filling because of payroll situations, that's obvious. That's still the problem. It's currently the problem.
Yeah.
But winning games with the crew that we have right now, payroll's not necessarily the problem.
Right.
I mean, you could argue that it is, right? But not as a whole. And the reason I say that, I know, I'm repeating myself. You're right.
I really wasn't saying, but
okay. Because I felt like I was like, I'm going to say something I've already said.
But yeah. But you never want to go spend money to block somebody, like you said too. Like
yeah. Well, and it's just still the idea that if you start with payroll, then signing somebody to an extension automatically makes this team better, and it's the same exact team.
Same team, yeah.
The same team. So that right there, in and of itself, tells you that a higher payroll doesn't change anything.
Even if you sign somebody to an extension, you're not increasing this year's payroll.
Well, if the extension starts this year, if the extension would start this year, they would. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to sign O'Neal Cruz to an extension and keep him on a league minimum. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but extensions like that, they never kick in that year.
I actually had this conversation too. I said very rarely, and then I was kind of pointed in the same way, like I think it happens more than you think. So I think that there's probably some truth to that. I mean,
okay.
So anyway, let's get into our draft. we've got some time here to get into our draft here. And last week was the pitching draft. We had a couple comments on it. Pirate Takes mentioned that he wanted to see the numbers of Chris Benson and Jason Schmidt. Thought that they would have been mentioned. He also liked Oliver Perez as like a fan pick kind of thing, and was glad that Grilly got mentioned.
Yeah, I definitely clicked on Jason Schmidt very early in my
research.
There you go. Thank you. His numbers just were not good in Pittsburgh, man. They weren't
good. They're just not going to make this list.
Yeah, they were okay.
I was even looking because Oliver Perez, kind of had like a year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
and Chris Benson was kind of on that list where he had like, oh yeah, like look at that year. Oh, but then it did that.
Yeah, I definitely had Benson and Schmidt's baseball reference pages open.
Yeah, and Schmidt actually never, in a single season, never got under 4.
Yeah.
Which was surprising to me. My memory had him a little better than that. So that was an interesting pull up there. And then also Pittsburgh Pirate Queen at Pittsburgh Pirates Queen picked my draft to be the winner, by the way. The only vote we got this week, which means I win, I guess.
Yes.
And offered us her draft, which was, and I'm going to read it the way that she said it because I like the nicknames being on there, which she could have went with Frankie, but she went with Liriano. Liriano, Batman, Cole, Ground Chuck, and Mark the Shark. So she did throw Charlie Morton in there. Yeah. Who you said last week, like, you wanted to put him in there a little bit,
Yeah, if he was a little more consistent in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You just never knew what you were going to get.
Yep. So this week, Jake is going to go first, and we'll remind anybody who maybe didn't listen last week, we're drafting 5 players each. This week is outfielders and catchers. The player pool that we're going off of is Pirates players between 1990 and 2022, based on their stats from their times with the Pirates, not as they left or before they came. Or last week, Doug Drabeck was brought up because he had some good years prior to 1990, but those couldn't be considered, even though he's still the number 1 overall pick. So yeah. There's a player this week who I think they'll maybe play a little bit of that. Oh, yeah, but some of that was before, right? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
I do not feel confident in my draft this week, I'll tell you that much. I'm just not confident. And I also don't have my Word document brought up, so I can't type these as we go. Just totally forgot to do that part of it.
I feel pretty good about this one, actually.
Yeah, I just kind of, when I was looking through, I was like, yeah, I don't know where I'm at.
Welcome to the second pick.
Welcome to the second pick. Go ahead.
I was not comfortable last week because I had the second pick. So with the number 1 pick in the outfielder draft, I'm going to take Andrew McCutchen. I think it's a slam dunk.
I think that's a slam dunk. I definitely would have picked the same exact person first off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think we have to even talk about that, right? And reluctantly, that means my first pick. It just has to be. There's just no option for it not to be Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
And I actually feel a little bit better about the fact that I'm picking him in a list that only counts his Pittsburgh days. Jerk or not, he was a good player.
Yeah, he was definitely second on my list.
Yeah.
But I'll go down to my number 3 guy, and I'm going to go ahead and draft. Oh, you know what? This is tough. It's a little tougher. I got 2 Bryans here. I'm going to go ahead and draft Reynolds.
Brian Reynolds?
Brian Reynolds.
Okay, so Brian Reynolds was number 4 on my list, which means you gave me my number 3 guy.
He was number 4 on my list too, but I just changed my mind.
Okay, well, it's certainly not the same guy as me, so you can go ahead and have both of those guys, which is unfortunate because that guy was number 6 on my list. But I will go with Andy Van Slyke. There's a little
6th on mine.
Little bit of maybe a little bit of fan favorite there, but either way, your next pick was 6th on my list. Go ahead.
Brian Giles.
Yep. Dude, when you said Brian's, I'm looking at my list.
Dude, he hit the ball over the fence a lot.
Yeah, I get it. For me, there's just a slight bit of the PED thing that slights me. I know that the numbers on the field are what they are, and it's fine. But if I'm picking, I would have. He was still on my list. He's just down on my list. So my next guy is going to be Starling Marte.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and take Jason Bay then.
Not even in my top 10.
Really?
He's on my
Man,
list.
he had some good seasons.
Not on my top 10. I never was really into him.
That's fine. You don't have to be into him, but the production was there.
It's true. I wasn't into Bonds either, but I was not into Bay for different reasons. I always thought like, yeah, when's this going to run out? Like, I don't know why. That's what I thought.
I'm just saying, I just drafted 4 of my top 5 guys.
Yeah. Jason Bay was literally number 11 on my list.
This draft's going quick.
It's going very quick. So what do I have left? I've got 2 outfielders on my list and 2 catchers. And because of this, because you have the first pick, I don't think ooh, that's interesting. I am going to let this ride. I'm going to go with my next in line. I'm going to go Bobby Bonilla. I heard the dang it.
I'm going to say dang it just because I was hoping you'd go catcher there because I'm done with outfielders.
You're done completely with outfielders? Other than you said
5 guys.
Well, right. So the one catcher. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you only have a catcher left. Okay. Yeah. Well, so the reason I'm playing this way, I have 2 catchers, and whatever you don't pick, I'll pick. So
exactly. And I was hoping you'd just make it easy on me and take one of them because I really like picking one of these 2 guys. I can't really pick one over the other. They're like, to me, but I'm going to go ahead and take Russell Martin and let you have Kendall.
Okay. So what's really funny is that's exactly who I'm going to pick. And now that you said Russell Martin, I was going to jump ahead to make my pick before you got your catcher in, just to say, like, he's already done with outfielders. I can throw my catcher out there and I can get whatever outfielder I want.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I didn't stick with that, except for the fact that when I looked at my 2 catchers, I had Russell Martin as my number 7 draft pick and Jason Kendall as my number 8. To be fair, Bobby Bonilla is my number 9. Like when I made my top 10 here. And then because I don't have the numbers in front of me, I thought, am I really going to pick Russell Martin over Jason Kendall? Am I going to do that? So I must have been and then the fact that you picked Martin first, there must be something there that says, I mean, he was only here for 2 years, but those numbers are so convincing and he made such of a big deal on a winning team.
Yeah.
If
you like, and I'm not huge on WAR. But if you like WAR, it's like 2 or 3 higher. Like it's a significant difference.
Like per year while he was there.
Yeah. But
yeah, and maybe that's part of what
if I could have both of them, I would. But
there's no doubt.
For this, it's we both have a solid.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do a reminder here. My draft is Barry Bonds, Andy Van Slyke, Starling Marte, Bobby Bonilla, Jason Kendall. And that goes up against yours of Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, Brian Giles, and Jason Bay. And Russell Martin. Is this interesting to you? This is the way my brain works. Is this interesting to you that you have Andrew McCutchen and then the guy Andrew McCutchen was traded for, Brian Reynolds, and then you picked Brian Giles and the guy Brian Giles was traded for in Jason Bay?
It's not really that interesting because I didn't put that kind of thought into it.
I know.
I just looked at numbers.
Yeah. Well, hindsight, you wouldn't have known which guys you're going to end up with.
Right.
But how funny is it that that's how you ended that thing?
You know, was there anybody on your list that didn't get picked?
Yeah, Al Martin.
You had Al Martin on your list.
I had Al Martin on my list ahead of Jason Bay.
Wow. Why?
I liked it. The numbers are there, dude.
Numbers were not great.
He did
not. You know who made my top 10 that didn't get drafted was Reggie Sanders.
Reggie Sanders had 1 year. It was a great year.
Solid.
Yeah, it was a great year. And I didn't go for it. Dude, 8 years in Pittsburgh. 342 on base, 280. I don't know, 106.
Didn't hit very many home runs.
No, but it's not all about home runs. He had a 106 OPS plus. I'm just on Baseball Reference here. Only really, I mean, like his 12 games doesn't count in his rookie year.
Right.
Or not even rookie year, right? He was 5th in Rookie of the Year voting. And then, other than that, like they were a really bad team. But he was there. He played. He only one other time was he below league average in OPS.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was Army. You know what I mean? I had a lot of guys that, even if it was for one season, had better numbers.
And that's maybe what it is. You know what I mean? 6 years in Pittsburgh. Jason Bay, 281, 375. So they're kind of close there. OPS plus is absolutely blows Al Martin out of the water. I'm stupid. But he did get Rookie of the Year, right? Yeah. And also only one time below league average in OPS plus. I mean, this has to just be an overlook to not include. I mean, Jason Bay's on my list.
Yeah.
And he's right beside Al Martin. And why I put a 10 by Al Martin instead of Jason Bay doesn't make any sense to me. When I look at the numbers now, it doesn't make any sense to me.
That's all right. Remember that time I overlooked our Rule 5 pick?
Yeah, I remember that. Bobby Bowe, though, I think that's a big one in favor of me. 6 years in Pittsburgh, 284, 357, so it's a little bit there. 134 OPS, so a little bit better than Jason Bay. Did not have a full season with the Pirates where he had a less than stellar year. 118, 143, 145, 132, 149. Just a ridiculous. Now, some of those are prior to, right? But if you start in 89 or start in 1990, when he started playing outfield all the time, he was second in the MVP voting that year. 1991, he was third in the MPV voting. All-Star and Silver Sluggers both of those years. 132, 149 OPS plus, 32 homers, 18 homers, and then the next year he was gone to the Mets to sign that ridiculous contract or whatever. If that's when it was signed, I don't know. But like those 2 years from Bobby Bonilla, and this is the player I was saying that a lot of his work was kind of done prior to, but those 2 years were his best 2 years in Pittsburgh and his best 2 years in his career. If you look at like MVP votes, like Bobby Bonilla was the real deal in 90 and 91. And that's when he started playing outfield because Jeff King came up.
Yeah.
Which puts him on this list, not a third baseman, but an outfielder. And how about this one? 1989, Bobby Bowe played 163 games. Must have had a playoff or something. I don't remember that. Yeah. Of course, I was 6 years old, but but anyway, that's just a Did you have a guy on your list that you wanted to touch on like that? I mean,
it was Reggie Sanders was the one.
Okay. Oh, well, but we also touched Jason Bay. Bobby Bowe was a guy I drafted, which is why I was going after him. Yeah. Andy Van Slyke was probably my fan pick that I moved up in the list.
I honestly thought I was going to end up with McCutchen and Bonds because I didn't think you would draft me. Just because. I thought you'd go to your next guy.
I just couldn't.
Yeah.
You probably still beat me here. I only have one recent guy. All of my guys are old. I have all 90s guys. Well, I mean, Jason Kendall was not 90s necessarily, but like I went with Bonds, Van Slyke, Bonilla. Yeah. That's 90 and 91. You know what I mean? Like that's,
Yeah.
So Van Slyke, he was.
It's fair. They were really good then.
Yeah, Van Slyke, he got fourth in the MVP votes, right? And in those years, in those years, he was also an All-Star, Gold Glover, and a Silver Slugger. Unfortunately for me, one of those years was 1988, which doesn't count for this draft. The other year was 92. And so I see that. I see 90, 91, 92 were all Gold Glove years. He was an All-Star in 92 and 93. But hitting over 300 on base was ridiculous. So, when I look at that and I say 1990, 132, 126, 150, 116 on the OPS marks, and then 94 obviously is a different story. But I mean for the whole thing. But basically, I really liked Andy Van Slyke as a fan. He was my dude. How many years in a row did I dress up as Andy Van Slyke for Halloween? But also, now that I go back and I look at it, the numbers were there too to back up my draft pick. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah, yours probably still wins, but I still like mine. I thought that was a pretty strong pool of players. Next week we'll do infielders. Once again, guys, we like the fact that we had some responses from you guys. Keep that up. Give us your drafts, outfielders. You could just do it. We did it both that way. So let's do 4 outfielders and a catcher. Shoot them at me. Let us know what you had there. Let us know who won our draft. So basically, let us know Jake won. Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, Kutch rules this category. He rules this category. It's not even close, by the way. More so than Doug Drabick did last week. This is clear and convincing Andrew McCutchen. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, guys. Kutch is king. So, all right. What else do we have here? You got anything to close this thing out?
No. We're just inching closer to spring training, man.
Yeah, we are.
It's almost the new year.
Great discussion this week. Kind of tackling 2 things. I know one thing that's close to your heart is the fact that the lineups are crazy. Just real quick, do you have a different kind of viewpoint on lineups at this point before you did when we hit record?
Yes and no. I guess I get it that you're going to run a different lineup out there a lot, but I still see when you were talking about there's a core.
Yeah.
That all the good teams have. They run them out there every day, and it's not just one guy.
Yeah. Yep. And right now for us, it's been one guy. It's going to be interesting to see how many more guys can lock down a spot in the batting order and see them out there.
And I'm just
day
not
in and day
crazy.
out.
Just not crazy about moving where you're at in the lineup a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I'm okay with it when you're talking about like, hey, against lefties, we're gonna make an opportunity for somebody else to rule those at, the top, to put in the top of the order kind of a thing, or take it easy on. If I could get O'Neal Cruz to get one less left hand, let's say that he starts against a lefty at leadoff, and then when the 4th hitter gets up, that lefty comes out of the game. Well, if he was hitting 5th, he could have one more at bat against a righty than a lefty. And just something like that. It could make a difference if he was hitting 5th, which I don't think I'd hit him lower than 4th, but that's just an example that I used.
Yeah.
So, all right. And then, of course, let us know about the rest of that stuff. Obviously, as we close out here, none of this, I know I used like the athletics article, although I didn't really say anything that I disagreed with on there. I kind of just, use them as a way to set up the thing, but also just like saying the stuff about listening to DK's Daily Shot and all that stuff. Like, by no means was this like, oh, we disagree with him. Like, it was just, this is just part of the discussion. And I like that. I like having the discussion and letting it bleed out. I think that, if anything, DK would probably appreciate that. At least I would hope so, that it would be received well. So, anyway, that's all. I just wanted to, clarify that I'm not here to call anybody out. You know what I mean? It's just not my thing. So with that said, let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!